Trilogies have come to comprise the bedrock of Star Wars storytelling, and for good reason. Authors and filmmakers have really thrived within the three-part structure, and as an audience we've kind of gotten used to this method of storytelling. We get introduced to the heroes in book 1, then they kind of fall and there's the rising darkness in book 2, only for the heroes to defeat that darkness and for the continuation of their journey in the final book. And in that same vein, Victory's Price represents the final chapter of Alexander Freed's Alphabet Squadron trilogy. We get a wonderfully satisfying conclusion for the characters we've come to know like Quell, Nath, Chas, and of course the eternally mysterious Kairos. And so with his particular brand of technical descriptors and unforgiving emotional character work, Freed really cements himself as one of the great authors of this Star Wars writing era. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Emery, content creator here at Youtini, and I'm here to deliver our review of Alphabet Squadron Victory's Price by Alexander Freed. Now as a reminder, Youtini reviews are compiled from thoughts and scores from a number of our staff, and from those reviews we compile one review that really sums up what the team at Youtini felt about this book, and we average the scores for each category from each team member. As usual, we'll go through the various categories, kind of reviewing the book from that angle, and then we'll give a final score for each category before ultimately giving the book itself an overall final score at the end of the review. So without further ado, let's jump into the plot. Keeping in line with its predecessors, Alphabet Squadron Victory's Price kind of starts at a slower pace than a lot of the canon books, which some of our readers kind of found difficult. This isn't a book that comes screaming at you with exciting action and space battles and all of the action that you're used to from the Star Wars universe. Instead, it's much more of a slow burn. This is the end of a tale that's years in the making, and you're meant to know every part of it. Of course, there are chapters that are those really exciting space battles where you get to see Alphabet Squadron in action, but those chapters are coupled with chapters that really focus on the details. You know, this isn't a glamorous version of war like a lot of Star Wars books are. This is meant to be a real picture of what it was like. Without the glory, without the sheen, this is just the day-to-day life of war. And war means death. And with every chapter, we kind of see our characters getting closer to what they most desire in this war, which is the end. The previous book, Shadowfall's conclusion, ended testing Alphabet Squadron's loyalty in a new way, and Victory's Price picks up right where that left off. Erica Quell, fresh off a desertion from her squad, picks up her story in the Imperial Shadow Wing, where she has defected to once again. And so a lot of the early chapters deal with her relationship with her mentor, Soren Keyes. And a lot of it deals with Quell trying to determine the true motives of this man. But whatever those intentions are, one thing is clear from the start, and that's that Keyes intends to continue Operation Cinder. And there's only one group that can stop it, and, well, do they really need an introduction? Will Lark now assumes the role of a rebellion leader on the cusp of victory. Nath Tenzin, who's been a pirate and a traitor to pretty much every allegiance he's ever had, now has to come to terms with those who look up to him, taking responsibility in a way he's never done in his life before. And Chasna Chaddock, who used to soar through the galaxy at the beat of any drum she could find, now finds herself longing for a cult that she once felt imprisoned by. And Kairos is, well, Kairos. Or is she even that anymore? So Freed maintains this dichotomy throughout the book, this focus on the inner struggles of the Alphabet Squadron members, along with the larger struggles against Shadow Wing and for the New Republic. And along the way, we're faced with questions like, how far does the loyalty of these members of Alphabet Squadron go? How far can they be pushed? What is the price of victory? And this review of the plot has been kind of intentionally vague because in order to get the answers to those questions, this plot demands attention. It's like an intricately woven fabric where you really need to follow along with every character and plot point in order to really reap the rewards of this book. But ultimately, those rewards are high stakes, a great story, and satisfaction in this story that was started years ago.
That's why our final score for plot was a 9 out of 10.
Now let's move on to characters. So since our first review of Alphabet Squadron 2 years ago, we've never shied away from the fact that the strength of this series is its characters. You know, ask 5 readers what their favorite character is, and there's a good chance you'll get 5 different answers. Now that's not an easy task. Fried doesn't try to make these characters likable or fit into any specific stereotypes. Each one is complex and faces their own journey, and Fried explores that journey without any sort of judgment or goal in mind. It's the decision to focus on what the character needs to experience rather than what we as readers might want them to experience or what we feel like they should. And that decision might ostracize some readers who are kind of used to a lot of Star Wars stories where we see something very different, and that's clear heroes and villains. It's kind of this mythical quality. But in place of that, what we have is authenticity. Victory's Price has some of the most flawed, authentic, and real Star Wars characters we've ever seen. These are not some fairy tale knights who go after these great mythical dragons. These are real leaders. They're tired, they make mistakes, they need rest. Chief among these leaders, however, is a character that's not actually in Alphabet Squadron, and that's General Hera Syndulla. Now, Syndulla's appearance in Victory's Price is much larger than the other two entries, which probably satisfies fans who are waiting for more Star Wars Rebels content, but also serves to really show us this great New Republic leader. It gives us a look at Alphabet Squadron from a different point of view. Because Hera's a general, a leader, a friend, a mother, she really links these characters in Alphabet Squadron, their unique individual stories, to the larger story of the Star Wars universe, and that's a great perspective to have as we read this book. Fried's dedication to authenticity in his characters gives Victory's Price a level of realness that we don't see in a lot of Star Wars novels, and because of that, this conclusion to the trilogy is especially satisfying from the perspective of characters.
Our final score for characters was a 9.5 out of 10.
With that, let's move on to originality. Now, Victory's Price is an important Star Wars book. It's an odd phrase, isn't it? But it really rings true. Without spoiling too much, as you read this book, you see a lot of plot points that we see in other Star Wars media that you're already familiar with, and they kind of tie to the larger galactic universe. But the thing is, Alphabet Squadron presents it from the perspective of soldiers, people who are tired of the war, people who are actually fighting the war instead of, again, the mythical Star Wars heroes that we're used to. And that's why at the end of this book, it feels important to the story of Star Wars. It's this kind of unfiltered look at the toll that war exerts on those actually fighting it on the ground that really makes Victory's Price a valuable Star Wars novel. Again, Star Wars is great for its mythicality, for its fight between good and evil and the ultimate triumph of good, but books like Alphabet Squadron remind us at what cost that victory comes.
And our final score for originality was an 8.8 out of 10.
And before we continue on in this review, I just wanted to let you know that you can get Victory's Price for free as an audiobook. All you have to do is head on over to youtini.com/audible, sign up, and you'll get your first Star Wars audiobook completely free. Now, developing a distinct writing style within the universe of Star Wars is a difficult task for any author, and a lot of times we can kind of see Star Wars authors fall behind the weight of this intellectual property. But Alexander Fried doesn't suffer from this problem. As we've noted in our reviews of the past two Alphabet Squadron novels, Fried brings a level of technicality and detail that we don't often see in the Star Wars publishing universe. And in Victory's Price, he continues that level of description and almost adds more touches of poetry to his writing, whether it's looking into the thoughts of a character while they're really wrestling with some deep things, or just really in detail describing interactions between characters. This is a beautifully written and detailed story. And so the choice to scatter these kind of colorful descriptions throughout the book really adds to this sense of almost finality within this trilogy. They're no longer a set of characters trying to suss out each other's motives. They've already handled that. They've lived, they've fought together, they've moved past it, they've matured. And sure, this level of description might add a few pages to the end of the book, might make it a little bit slower or longer of a read, but is it worth it? Absolutely. And we know for certain that Alexander Fried will always be able to capture beauty from sorrow.
We gave the writing of this book an 8.8 out of 10.
Now let's move on to entertainment. To call Victory's Price entertaining is almost a disservice to the book. And that's not to disparage any of the books that we've called entertaining in the past or rated highly for their entertainment. Entertainment is a fantastic thing, but entertainment isn't one of the top even 10 words that comes to mind after finishing Victory's Price. Now, of course, while you're reading it, there's plenty of gunfire and action. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's full of adrenaline at times. But once you reach the finale of this book, it's not the kind of entertainment that makes you want to run laps or pumps you up or gets you really excited to continue diving into this great galaxy. It's the kind of feeling that makes you pause, that commands attention and respect, a deep thought. And at the end of the day, the immense satisfaction provided by the conclusion will definitely give you some of the strongest feelings you felt since you first opened Alphabet Squadron.
So our final score for entertainment was an 8.8 out of 10.
So in conclusion, Alexander Freed did it. He created a finale to this trilogy that has taken all of the threads of grace, of mercy, of character development, of relational development, and of course of the costs of war, and created a beautiful and satisfying story to end the trilogy. It's one that we'll probably be thinking on for years to come. And that probably cements Victory's Price as one of the most important Star Wars books that will be on shelves for years to come. You know, the lessons in this book aren't in some far off galaxy, they're battles that we fight with ourselves every day.
So overall, the Youtini review team gives Victory's Price a 9.0 out of 10.
It's hard to imagine how we felt when Alphabet Squadron was first announced. I mean, a book with such a silly sounding name didn't seem like it could fill the huge shoes left behind by Rogue Squadron. But then we fell in love with Will. We evolved with Kairos, we understood Soren and Erica. Erica taught us who we've been, who we are, and who we can be. Alexander Freed's Victory's Price is available now. Here's the story he told.